Hello everyone, my name is Griffin and we are back with another reaction video. We are reacting to another Sydney Watson video. This one she titled, "I'm so sick of these people." I haven't seen this video yet, so I'm not exactly sure what people she's referring to, but I can only guess considering the stuff that she's made. I like Sydney Watson. I think she does very well with her work. She does a great job with her research and investigations and all the stuff she does. I've been watching her for I think about a couple of years, 2 or 3 years now. I've been watching her. But let's see. Let's check out the video, shall we?
I feel like I am going mad. Does anyone else feel like that?
Every day. Every day.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Galaxy Lamps. And once again by me and my little tea company, Lions Tea Exchange. This makes a great gift for Mother's Day, and we have some great blends that mums would love, like the Raspberry Elderflower Rosé, Lemon Ginseng, and maybe even the New York Breakfast.
I've
and
never
as you
been a
guys
fan
know,
of
we
tea,
use
so
real tea leaves and these giant pyramid tea bags, which I love. So go check it out if you're interested. I will pop the link in the description box.
I can never get
Now,
into tea.
if you have been here for any length of time, you will probably know that I generally have a very low tolerance for people behaving like animals in any given situation. It does not matter to me which side of the aisle you're on. If you are behaving like a grub person, I do not like it and I do not want to see it. Send yourself to the island and out of my sight.
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
So, of course, it hasn't escaped my attention, and I dare say it hasn't escaped yours either, that over the last number of days and weeks, an astounding amount of people in cities across the United States have been behaving appallingly. It's giving me 2020 Summer of Love vibes. Ugh. If you've been following the news at all, you'll know that many university campuses across the United States have been experiencing student protests in support of Palestine. And so far,
I will say this, I don't keep up with what's going on across the world, because if it doesn't affect how I go about my daily life, so I have no idea what's going on with Palestine. I really don't, because I haven't looked into it. I haven't cared to look into it. Take that how you will. I'm just trying to go about my life day by day. So I have no idea what's going on. All I see is free Palestine fucking everywhere.
these have looked mostly like your normal demonstrations. Scuffles with police, arrests, people acting aggressively and disorderly. Although, and you can call me mean and judgmental for saying this, but I do find it funny how the majority of these people look like they couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. It really reinforces the idea that these kids yearn for manual labor. But now, according to The Guardian, students have set up encampments on more than 80 university campuses in the country.
Demonstrators have set up encampments on more than 80 campuses across the U.S. and are demanding that academic institutions sever financial ties with Israel or companies that are connected to the Israeli military's war in Gaza. Huh.
And are demanding that their academic institutions sever financial ties with Israel or companies that are connected to the Israeli military's war in Gaza. It is estimated that over 1,000 people, some of whom are suspected to be paid protesters and not actually students, have been arrested since the protests started. And just to be clear here from the outset, there are a lot of really good videos out there floating around that capture precisely what's been going on that I can't include in this video because unfortunately, YouTube has some really odd rules around protest footage, and I don't want to get age restricted again. Of course, I'm going to include what I can or videos that stood out to me, and hopefully that will satisfy all of
You know, unless it's severe violence, I don't really understand YouTube's problem with showing protests. I mean, it's a protest. Who cares? People protest all across the world. I don't see the problem with actually showing video footage of said protests. I mean, it doesn't harm anybody unless it turns into riots. Then, you know, let people protest as long as it's peaceful and doesn't disrupt anybody's life.
you. Hopefully,
Looking at you people who throw shit on paintings and disrupt traffic and complain that a car almost hit you. You are a dumbass.
I can still scratch the itch. But anyway, since all of these protests and encampments have been going on, since I've seen a ton of footage relating to incidents, particularly over the last number of days, it's reminded me in detail why I genuinely can't stand the majority of the people involved. The more footage I see, and believe me, there's a lot of footage, the more I'm reminded of the same anger I felt watching people burn their own cities to the ground a couple years earlier. Color me crazy, but you should probably stop doing that. And here's the thing, I fundamentally believe that people have the right to gather, to demonstrate, and to protest. But one of the things that makes me so mad is how these people conduct themselves, how entitled they are, and how they don't seem at all to really understand the things that they're fighting for. So let me illustrate this with some examples that stood out to me. And speaking of things that stand out,
Yeah, see, people have the right to protest. That's not in question. Everyone in this country, I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but I know this country for sure has the right to protest. You can't really stop them from doing so. The thing people seem to misunderstand, the protesters in question seem to misunderstand, is how to protest. They seem to think that their way of protesting is to go and disrupt the lives of as many people as they possibly can to try and get their point across, when all you're doing is pushing said people away and pissing them off. You can't inform people by disrupting how they go about their daily life. At that point, like I said, you're just going to piss them off. They're going to ignore you and think you're a dumbass. Again, looking at you people who try and disrupt traffic. See, the thing is, you if you want to protest, that's fine. Put together information packets, set up areas, like put tent areas like you'd see at, firework places, those, just the roof of the tent and, open area, have benches, have tables and all this stuff, and put up videos and informing people of what's going on factually, not what you believe. Put together videos, pamphlets, seminars, this sort of stuff, and inform people of what's going on and the harms of said things that you're trying to protest. Go to your local government, petitions, all this sort of stuff of what a protest is actually you're supposed to do. Picket signs and all this stuff to the point where you're not in the way of people's lives, and just let people know what you're protesting and let them inform them of what the protest is about. All this sort of stuff that's easy to do. The way people are protesting now is the people who would go to art museums, splash it with soup and spout dumbass nonsense, and the people who go in the middle of traffic and complain that they're almost hit by a vehicle while you're the dumbass that went in the middle of traffic. You're taught as a child not to play in traffic, but it's these people don't understand how to protest anymore. They think disrupting people's lives is the way you protest, and all you're doing is pushing them away and pissing them off.
You want to know what stands out to me? The sponsor of today's video, Galaxy Lab. This is my timers.
Sorry, Sydney. I'm always gonna skip sponsors.
And your connect base. Could have project tech and making your org to you video of a press Watson for 15% off. A few days ago, a video of a press conference with a Columbia University student went viral. In the video, she is asked by a reporter about her demands that the university feed protesters who are occupying a place called Hamilton Hall. The woman refers to food and drink being brought to the students as humanitarian aid and suggests that students will starve to death if they are not fed.
Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you. If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
I love it how she even stops herself to be like, well, I know we're on an Ivy League campus. These people are just the gift that keeps on giving.
You can't protest and then expect people to feed you and give you drink. If you're gonna protest, make sure you bring that shit yourself. Otherwise, you're an idiot.
The reporter responds to this, saying that the students put themselves in this position and basically want to roleplay as revolutionaries while simultaneously expecting to be brought food. And that obviously didn't go down so well.
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food?
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
but
violently.
They haven't stopped it yet.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
Dude, these people are so dramatic. You think your university is going to violently stop you from feeding yourselves? Stop it!
I don't think a university can violently stop anybody because they don't have a militia to violently stop anyone. They have maybe a couple security guards that aren't even, you know, well enough to stop an entire group of people. There are only a couple of them. You know, unless the entirety of the educational body of the university comes and attacks all at once, they can't really violently stop anybody.
Like, what am I even listening to here? Your parents' cousins? Well, I suppose that would make sense, actually, given the ideology these people are defending. Before you yell at me in the comments for being a big meanie, what I'm suggesting here is statistically accurate, so do with that what you will. Similarly, an associated...
Okay, let's read these. Updated supply needs. Medical tent. Okay. Table, needed most, urgent. Heat gloves, needed most. What are you whining about over there, huh? There shouldn't be another cat. Wound packing gauze, need most. Portable chargers. You can do without a portable charger, you pansy. Curlix gauze. CAT tourniquets, ACE bandages, 4x4 gauze, ABD pads for wounds, goggles, emergency bandage, trauma shears, Vaseline, tweezers, CPR masks, butterfly suture closures, disposable stethoscopes, camping sink, buckets with lids, helmets, HIV test, dental dams, Plan B. Plan B? What the fuck? Do you guys plan on having sex every fucking day? Diva cups, chapstick, Mylar blankets, contact solutions and cases, IFAC pouches, care tent, COVID test, battery powered lanterns, flashlights behind the ear, mask buffers to take pressure off from wearing a mask for a long time, portable chargers, food tent, serving utensils, serving bowls. Okay, people, you know, when you protest, and if you're going to be at one area to protest for an uncertain amount of time, you know, days, weeks, or months, you have to learn to bring these supplies yourself. You cannot expect the community at large to supply you with shit. You are the ones that's supposed to be supplying the stuff yourself. Now, if people want to go out of their way to help supply you that, then that's fine. But you cannot go into protest expecting people to take care of all your wants and needs. That's just fucking stupid.
University of Chicago Instagram account, which I believe is run by protesting students, posted stories asking for particular items so that they can better protest. This included things like Plan B, HIV tests, and dental dams, COVID tests, and portable chargers. Is the assumption here that at this encampment protest there are going to be people who are doing the bumpity bump? The devil's tango? The horizontal monster mash? Well, I suppose that's one thing to do when you're unemployed and protesting at your university. At least here we can brush some of these things off as funny. Entitled, but funny. You know, we can do a little bit of mucking. But then we roll around to the huge amount of disrespect. A few days earlier, a clip took off that showed students at Harvard University replacing the American flag with the Palestinian flag, because of course they did. This also happened at George Washington University. And
by the way, I'm not sure if it's against the law to take down the American flag without permission and replace it with another country's flag. If it isn't, it is very, very, very frowned upon to do so. And you can and will get in trouble for doing so. You are not supposed to, as citizens, without permission of the state government or the without the permission of the landowner, to replace said American flag with another country's flag. You are not allowed to do that. There are certain people who are there that take care of it that do that. We as regular citizens are not allowed to. Now, your flag in your own yard, you are allowed to, because that is what you own. It is yours. So, this is very, very disrespectful.
And the University of Chicago. These students also gleefully cheered as these flags were raised at each of these locations. There are also photos floating around that show a statue of George Washington at George Washington University covered in the same flag, a headscarf, and Free Palestine stickers, and also a ton of graffiti. I don't know what these people have against the statues. Why is it always the statues? More footage has shown the state of these campuses, with protesters at UCLA completely destroying the outside of a building.
This is another way that you do not protest. This is not a peaceful protest. This is a very disrespectful way to protest. It's like people nowadays have no idea how to protest anymore. They just think that destroying property and causing thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in property damage is a way to protest, which is not how you go about doing so. It's one way to get in trouble with the law and get a fine and go to jail.
Building called Royce Hall, covering the walls and floor in graffiti, barricading the entrances, and strapping tents to the building. Which, I don't know, maybe this is a little impressive. How have they done this? I don't know about the rest of you, and there's obviously a bunch of reasons why this makes me mad, but I think I react in part so viscerally because so few modern buildings actually even look nice. And these straw-brained people are just out here destroying the aged ones. The nice-looking aged ones. There's just no excuse for this, as far as I'm concerned, especially now that we have buildings that look like this.
Excuse me, I need your help. You need to kill me.
In yet another video, again on the UCLA campus, pro-Palestine protesters had left behind an enormous amount of rubbish after their encampment had ended.
Jesus Christ. Okay, people, if you're going to protest, if you're going to camp out at a place to protest for a long period of time, learn to pick up after yourselves. At least be a decent human being and pick up your fucking trash. You don't live in a barn. You're not some homeless, mindless freak of nature. Be a decent human being and pick up your fucking garbage.
Stepped in to dismantle the camp, many of the students who were there protesting likely consider themselves environmental activists, and this is how much rubbish they leave behind. And before anyone is like, oh no, they didn't have time to clean up. I'm sorry, but no. You have to make an effort to not care to leave an area looking like this. But jokes aside, I would argue that almost all of their concern for the environment when actually put into practice is entirely performative. And speaking of performative, please enjoy my favorite video to come out of all of this, which shows a bunch of activists running at police holding shields made out of rubbish bins. Yeah. Every time I watch this, I can't help but feel so sorry for these men. Like, yes, they are LARPing, they are live action role playing as like tough people, but I think it just shows that they yearn for the mines. There's one part of this video that I unfortunately can't include, but it's basically where one of the rubbish bin shield guys runs directly into one of the police officers, and he's probably hoping that some of that masculinity is gonna transfer onto him. It's probably the first time in his life that he's ever done something physical.
I'm not a baby, I'm a man!
I think the last video that I would like to show you is of a group of pro-Palestine protesters praying as the sun sets on the UCLA campus. The women are situated in the back behind all the men, and to cap it off, they're wearing hijabs. Hilariously or depressingly, depending on your take, you just know that these women are gender studies liberal feminists who use words like microaggression and mansplain and rail against any sort of perceived slight against them by men, but will voluntarily cover their heads and sit behind men.
I'm not sure if it's respectful for people to do the hijab thing unless they are a believer in said system. If you're doing it because you think it looks cool or trendy, I don't know. Is it disrespectful? Would it fall under the same umbrella as people dressing up like mariachi people from like Mexican culture or other sort of cultures? Is it disrespectful?
I wonder where all of the non-binary they-thems prayed. You also know that these are the same liberal feminists who will protest and fight for the inclusion of transgender people in women's spaces, while also fighting for the rights of an ideology and religion that is intolerant of them and the LGBT community they so uphold. I can't stand any of it. The mental gymnastics, while impressive, pain me. As a bit of an aside, what's worse is that the women who grew up—
Let's see. I'm an Iranian woman and have lived under the Islamic Republic for 20 and a half. Is that supposed to be 20.5 years? I moved to Germany because I thought the values I considered important would be respected in free Western countries. People cannot even imagine how triggering it is for us to see the unholy unity of Islamists and radical leftists. This is the very phenomenon that changed the history of my country for the worse. I am beyond disgusted and disturbed.
In Islamic countries are piping up to say that the unholy alliance between Islamists and radical liberal women is extremely upsetting, and honestly—
Okay, when it comes to religious stuff like this, I don't think you should be doing this unless you're actually a part of the religion and actually believe in it. Because if you're just doing this to protest, it's kind of seen as mocking their religion. And it's pretty disrespectful to mock other people's religion. So, I mean, maybe a couple of these women might actually be religious and do this sort of thing for religious purposes, but I see probably most of these women here aren't. I'm not really sure.
I completely agree with this, but that's obviously a video for another day. But here's the thing, right? When considering this group of people, the overt disrespect, the entitlement, and the cognitive dissonance is a feature, not a bug. They harp on about environmentalism, but put effort into being disgusting pig people when it counts. And I don't want to hear the excuses about the effort it takes to clean up after yourself. When you contrast this with, say, this video of Japanese people volunteering to clean up a stadium after a sports match, going through with their little rubbish bags, it's so cute, you learn how little these people actually care. The same goes for these liberal
Well, when it comes to cleanliness, Japanese people are actually pretty clean. I mean, even in their schools, they don't really have janitors. They have the kids clean up the schools. You know, it's nice to, you know, that there are people in Japan who volunteer to actually clean up the trash in a stadium. Though people should really learn to clean up after themselves so that, you know, they wouldn't have to have volunteers come up and clean up the entire stadium after people have left their garbage there. I mean, even in movie theaters, people need to learn to pick up after themselves, so the ones who come in after the movie's done don't really have much to clean up at all. It's just, people seem to not care anymore. They act like they're fucking pigs. I mean, if you want to be that messy and that stuff inside your own home, go right ahead. You live there. That's your place. But if you're doing it outside in public, you really need to learn to step up and look after what you've done. You're just basically a menace to society at that point.
Feminists who scream from the rooftops about intersectional feminism, uplifting women, fighting for women's rights, but when it comes down to it, they will embrace an ideology that subjugates women all over the planet. This also speaks to the Queers for Palestine thing that we've seen all over the place. This too is madness to me, given that these people will actively embrace a belief system that actively hates.
I firmly believe that a lot of the people in these Palestinian protests have no true idea of what's going on. They just see something and want to be a part of it and start protesting in said things without actually going in depth and looking about what the problem is and what's going on. So most of these people are just protesting to protest. They don't actually know about the things that are going on to cause the protest. They have no idea what's going on over in said countries, and they're just ignorant of the problems and things that are going on to cause the protest. So they're just there to be there. If you're going to protest anything, you need to make sure to look into what's going on with the problems and logically look at the problems and question everything. Don't go off things people say just because they say, I believe this, I believe that, I think this, I think that. No, you need to logically look at the facts, not how people feel about it, but the actual facts. And decide after you've looked at the facts logically, not through feelings, but logically, and decide there whether you want to protest or not. But I can probably guarantee you that most of the people who are protesting this stuff are just protesting to protest, just to get behind a cause without looking at what the cause is about.
Them abroad, but will condemn anyone who thinks even the slightest bit differently than they do on their home soil. I am too grumpy and old for this, I fear. When I make my videos, I try to be as even as I can, so I include different viewpoints, the good with the bad, all sorts of things that try to give a more rounded out picture of a situation. But here, and I freely admit this, I kind of don't really have a ton of nuance when it comes to this issue because it's pretty black and white for me. And I realize that that means that people will disagree with me, but that's perfectly okay. I view most of these kind of protests as performative and shallow and quite honestly pretty naive. Some more conspiracy-minded might even say orchestrated and coordinated. I don't know. Who would even suggest that? There is perhaps nobody more privileged, and I shudder to use that word, than Ivy League university students in the United States. These are young people who, I would imagine, probably have never really experienced real life. They don't quite grasp world events or history, and don't really have a good understanding of what's going on politically around the globe. And one of my biggest issues with them comes from the fact that basically every single initiative that they get behind is almost always the wrong one. And that's not to say that protesting war in and of itself is a bad initiative. It's not. And in fact, Americans have a long history of expressing their anger when America involves itself in foreign conflicts. But if this was about war, which it isn't, then one could reasonably assume that these children would also be upset by America's involvement in Ukraine. but they aren't. There are also so many important things that these young people and students could be standing up for that directly impact them, their families, and everyday Americans. The cost of food, cost of goods, Congress being full of geriatrics, the
I think the one thing I've only ever been upset about is the fact that our government, who is supposed to be looking out and taking care of its own people, give no fucks about taking care and looking after its own people. They're sending billions upon billions upon billions of dollars over to these foreign countries, which, look, I understand we help take care of foreign countries. I'm not against that. What I am against is sending out so much money and then saying we have no money to help take care of our own people and our own country. We're sending tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars overseas and using none of that money to help improve our country and improve the lives of its own citizens. The first thing we tell people, parents, the first thing basically parents tell their kids is to look after yourself and make sure you are taken care of, make sure you are happy and all this stuff before you go and help somebody else. Because how are you able to help someone else if you can't help yourself? How are you supposed to take care of someone else if you cannot take care of yourself? Which is the same thing for a country. How are we helping and taking care of other countries when we can't even help and take care of ourselves? We have people who are homeless, people who are starving, children who can't get a decent education, and people who can't even afford a home without involving 5 other people to help pay for it. We have families who have all family members, mother, father, son, and daughter, all working to afford the home they live in, be it an apartment, townhome, or an actual house. Food is skyrocketing, gas is skyrocketing, school is expensive as all fuck. We have families in debt, taxes are out of fucking control. And yet we are sending billions, tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars overseas to other countries. And yet we're telling our own citizens that we have no money to help take care or better their lives or take care of the country. How does that make any fucking sense? We need to learn to take care of ourselves and help ourselves before we even think about helping anybody else outside of our own country. Because it makes no sense to help everybody else and neglect ourselves. It makes no logical sense whatsoever. And yet we're doing exactly that.
Predatory health insurance system. Pick a cause, there's a lot to choose from. But instead, they concern themselves with things that really have no way of ever touching them. And they make their determination of who they support based on victimhood status and how brown someone is. This is just like another version of BLM, to be completely honest with you, from a group of young people who are so bored and entitled that they have nothing but outrage culture to sustain them. And look, as an aside, if you think I'm attacking these kids, it's not entirely their fault. They have been brainwashed by commie totalitarian professors since the very moment they stepped foot into university. And really, that's just a reflection of the state of America's education system. It really is ideological subjugation. Obviously, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there is so much to say and see when it comes to this topic, but I've had to leave a ton of things out and a ton of my opinions out just due to the fact that we would be here for a very long time. But ultimately, I am sick and tired of the entitlement and insanity that spawns from university campuses. I am tired of these people, I am tired of their actions, and I am tired of the causes that they get behind. But on one positive note, I am really heartened to see the other students who have decided to push back and fight back. That gives me a little bit of hope. But in the end, and I think this is fair to say, American universities right now are merely reaping what they've sowed, and they're getting out what they put into the very students who are turning on them. They have created a rod for their own back, and if these students weren't doing things that were so wantonly destructive and terrible, it would be a little bit cathartic. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder, check out Galaxy lamps using the link in the description. When you do and you use code Sydney Watson, you can get 15% off your order. Now I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you on my side of this issue where you think that these young people are incredibly disrespectful and entitled and you're just sick and tired of watching people behave like this? Do you think that they should be doing this, that this is the way to achieve their ends and the cause that they're standing up for is a good one? Do you think that the destruction of property is necessary, unnecessary? What do you think about the police getting involved and arresting people? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you guys along for the full ride. If you are not subscribed already and you would like to see more of this and more of me, please subscribe to the channel and feel free to leave a like and a comment on this video, as I do read the majority of them and I really like hearing your feedback. Of course, let me know if you have any video ideas or suggestions, and I will see you wonderful people in the next video.
What do you guys out here?
I feel like
Oh, okay. Well, that was Sydney Watson's video. I'm so sick of these people, and honestly, I'm fucking sick of these people as well. It's just, they're getting really out of control. These protesters are, honestly, they're more of a disruption and menace to society nowadays than they are anything else. I mean, if they want to protest, go ahead and protest, but the way they're going about their protesting is just, it's not how you do it. It's not how you protest. All they're really doing is disrupting people's lives and destroying property and causing problems with the law. But, you know, if you want to do that, go right ahead. Not that I can do anything to stop you, but, you know, just know that you are the cause of your own actions. So, but I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe for more. I post Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So, links to all my stuff will be in the description below. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.